At ease, guys, it's Captain Powerhouse, or as you may know me, Holt Hauser, back here with another video from Murphy's Vault. Today we're going to be doing a competitive modern league running Blue-Red Gift Storm. So, Blue-Red Gift Storm is a deck that's been around in Modern for a while, or at least in different variants it has, and it's a Tier 1 strategy right now. It's been extremely successful in the last couple weeks, and it's basically the premier combo deck of Modern. Now, if you like the video, if you like the deck tech, if you like the matches, check out some of our other stuff. Our YouTube channel has a lot of standard, limited, and other formats. I did a fun standard gauntlet the other day. We also have articles on our website at murphysvault.com. You can get the link there to our WordPress for all sorts of resources to level up your game. We also have things like Ask a Store Owner, box unopenings, and the like. So if you like the content, subscribe, check us out, and for any of your singles or sealed product needs, check us out on murphysvault.com. Anyways, now that that's all done and over with, let's jump into this deck. So, we're going to have a fair amount of explaining to do, because I'm going to assume that if you're here watching this video and this deck tech, perhaps you haven't played Storm or seen Storm. And there's a fair amount to go through. So, Storm is a deck that's built around cards with Storm. So Storm is a mechanic that says, when you cast a spell, copy it for every spell that was cast before it. So the two spells in Modern that you build around are Grape Shot and Empty the Warrens. So Grape Shot says, deal 1 damage to target creature or player, Storm. So basically what that means is that's our primary win condition. We want to cast effectively 20 spells or 19 spells and then cast Grape Shot targeting our opponent, reducing their life total to 0. The alternate win condition is Empty the Warrens, which makes 2 1/1 goblin tokens and it has Storm. Now, obviously, the advantage of winning with Empty is you don't have to cast as many spells before if your opponent isn't going to be able to answer the goblins. So how are we casting so many spells? How are we getting to the point where we can cast 20 spells or however many and throw them at the opponent's face? The way we're doing that is with 2 types of spells. So rituals. So what these effectively do is they net mana. You pay 2 mana, you make 3 mana in return. So you're throwing cards away to make more mana so you can stem together spells. So we have Desperate Rituals, 4 copies of that, and Pyretic Rituals. These are pretty much core to the deck. Then we also have Metamorphose. Metamorphose doesn't net mana by itself, but it creates 2 mana of any color and it lets you draw a card. So those 12 spells are pretty much the core of the deck. The engine that makes it all tick comes down to cost reducers and basically enablers that let you seek out the cards you need. So we have Goblin Electromancer and Baral, Chief of Compliance. I've registered enough deck lists now at modern events called Blue-Red Hate Bears because these cards basically make the combo busted. They go from, this is a lot of moving pieces, this is a lot of things, to being very easy to go off and very consistent. Baral, Chief of Compliance, and Goblin Electromancer both have the important text that says instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast. What that means is that your Desperate Rituals now make 2 mana rather than 1 extra. So it's 1 red for 3 red. Same with Pyretic Ritual. Even Metamorphose, you pay 1 red mana, and suddenly you're getting 2 mana in any combination. So you're netting 1 and you're drawing a card, which is extremely powerful. So, okay, we're able to make a bunch of mana. At least we can cast, upwards of 6 of these spells in our hand, theoretically. But how do we find our Grape Shot? How do we find our Empty? And 6 spells isn't quite enough to, storm to 20. The way we get around that is with this card. Gifts Ungiven says search your library for up to 4 cards with different names and reveal them. Your opponent then chooses 2 of those cards to put in your graveyard. The rest go to your hand. So basically, with your Goblin Electromancer or Baral, this costs 3 mana, and it lets you. The idea is to tutor up 4 cards that no matter which 2 they give you, you win the game. So to give an idea of how powerful this is, if you go on turn 2 Baral, turn 3 you can win the game. by basically casting a couple rituals. As long as you have 6 mana, you can find the Gifts Ungiven, and then get a Desperate Ritual, a Pyretic Ritual, and a Metamorphose, and finally a Past in Flames. And basically what Past in Flames lets you do is cast all these spells again from your graveyard with Flashback. No matter what they give you, you're going to be able to cast all those spells again by casting them from your graveyard. So, once you do that, you can get the gifts again, you can go and find whatever spells you need, whether it's more rituals, or a win condition like Grape Shot or Empty. Or perhaps you're a bit tight on mana or something like that. You can find other utility cards like Noxious Revival to be able to bring back some of the things that are in your graveyard already. So that's the main essence of the combo. The other cards are basically there to sculpt your hand, provide interaction, or shortcut the combo. So first we'll start with Remand. Remand's a pretty staple card for Modern. It basically lets you keep cards by only putting your opponent off tempo instead of countering their spell. So it's a bit of an interaction for a deck that main deck, its only piece of interaction is Grape Shot. But basically one of the cool parts about Remand is it lets you cheat the combo a little bit. What I mean by that is that Storm, as a keyword, is a triggered ability. When you cast a card with Storm, it triggers, and it says, put copies of this spell on the stack equal to the amount of spells that were cast before this spell. So for example, if I cast Grape Shot, I cast 9 spells. I then cast Grape Shot. Grape Shot goes on the stack. Its triggered ability that says Storm goes on the stack, that will put 9 copies. If I remand the original Grape Shot, it goes back to my hand, but all the copies still stay on the stack and they'll resolve. So what that means is I can cast 9 spells, go Grape Shot, 9 copies, then remand the first Grape Shot. I deal my opponent 9 damage. They're on 11. Okay, so I'll Grape Shot for 12 or for 11 now. Yeah, basically it lets you, instead of having to cast the whole 20 spells, you can cast far less than that. Obviously, most of the time in Modern, your opponent's not going to actually have 20 life. There's fetches, there's other things that hurt you, Thoughtseize effects, all that kind of jazz. So, oftentimes you won't need to get to the full 20, and basically what Remand can do is act as a way for you to get 2 Storm cards for the price of 1. The other cards in the deck are ones that are about sculpting and about finding the pieces you need so you can go off. So our newest addition from Ixalan is the 1-mana cantrip Opt. Scry 1, draw a card at instant speed. You know, it's got some synergy with Remand, but overall, it draws a card. That's pretty good, and lets you see the top card of your deck. Serum Visions, pretty standard for Modern. Draw a card, scry 2. It lets you pretty much see 3 cards down if you need to get there. Sleight of Hand lets you see 2 cards up front and choose the one you want. But basically, all these you'll have a combination of spells in your hand, and you'll want to basically find the pieces you don't have. If you have a bunch of rituals and you have a Mana Dork or a Baral, Goblin Electromancer, you'll need to find your gifts ungiven. So you're casting cantrips trying to find the gifts. Sometimes you have gifts, Baral, and a Grape Shot, but you need to find rituals. You need to find some way to make extra mana, so you get to search for those. Basically, a lot of the skill from this deck, in my opinion, comes down to how you cantrip and how you basically use your resources effectively. Knowing when to take a land versus when to take a fast mana spell or something like that. As far as the land base goes, you'll notice that actually there's no fetches. And the reason why is because between Opt and Serum Visions, we have so much scrying going on. We're putting so many cards to the bottom that we will not want to see later. The same goes with Sleight of Hand, since if you look at the top 2 cards and you put one on the bottom, if the card is bad now, generally speaking, because this combo deck is so linear, you will not want to see those cards again. The only shuffle effect we have in the deck, in fact, is Gifts Ungiven. And once you're casting Gifts Ungiven, ideally, you're going off. So we have some islands, a mountain, a snow-covered island, notably in case you need to fetch a mana source with your Gifts Ungiven, Shivan Reefs, Spire Bluff Canals, and Steam Vents. I have the one of Silver Falls, but overall I actually think it should just be a Steam Vents the more I've played with the deck. But it's a little bit cheaper. So that's the main deck. The only other thing that I haven't really touched on is Noxious Revival, I think. And basically what this card is good for, I mentioned it briefly that with gifts, it gives you some more flexibility, but basically it adds redundancy to the deck. And it lets you kind of choose more efficiently what effects you need now. So, like, when you have Metamorphose, for example, being able to choose something from your graveyard you know you're going to get off that cantrip can be a very powerful effect. And sometimes, you just need the Storm Enabler, and you have the cantrip and not that much mana. Fetching Noxious Revival, Warrens, and Grape Shot means for sure you're probably going to find a win condition as long as you have a way to draw a card. So, that's the main deck. The side deck, or the sideboard, I should say, has some other stuff. So empty, we have extra empties in there, mostly because there's Hate for Storm. There's ley lines. There's things that actually interact with the way Grape Shot works. There's meddling mages that say you can't cast Grape Shot. So we have empties in the sideboard, and that's also part of the reason I have one in the main deck, because I feel like there's actually a fair amount of Storm hate around. So empties are there. You can bring them in those matchups, or sometimes when especially against big mid-range decks that just can't fight 10 creatures. They want to go 1-for-1 with everything, and you're like, cool, make 12 goblins? And they're like, oh, I only have one creature on the board and a bunch of Terminates and Fatal Pushes. Yeah, you're probably going to win that matchup. So there's pieces of the puzzle, and what basically pieces is, it's an alternative to the gifts package. So there's ways gifts can be hated out pretty easily. First of all, it targets an opponent, which means if they have Leyline of Sanctity, you can't cast gifts. Also, any grave hate. That same goes for this. This Gifts and Passive Flames package relies on the graveyard being usable. And if your opponent has Rest in Peace, Grafdigger's Cage, all that kind of stuff, sometimes, or just ambient hate like Scavengers, sometimes it's more worth it to just cut out that package and put in a bunch of pieces of the puzzle and be like, yeah, I'm going to get so much card advantage in card selection. Look at the top 5 cards, choose 2. That is a very strong divination in an instant and sorcery deck. That gifts doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about it. Combine it with Baral or Goblin Electromancer, a 2 mana, look at the top 5 cards, choose the cards you need to go off, can be insane. That being said, it is a little bit more risky. If all your Grape Shots and all your empties are on the very bottom of the deck, which is statistically very unlikely, it's going to be really hard to win with something like Pieces of the Puzzle, because you'd have to draw your own deck. So there is a slight risk, whereas Gifts, the reason we're main decking it, is a lot more consistent. Echoing Truth, I've really found good. I've seen some lists taking it out or putting in something like Wipe Away, which is a similar effect. It has a single target, but a split second. But Echoing Truth is basically a big catch-all. It says return target non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent to their owner's hand. So this bounces your Rest in Pieces. This bounces your Eidolons of the Great Revel, your Aethersworn Canonist, your Eidolons of Rhetoric. There's tons of things that hate on Storm, and being able to say, okay, no matter what type of permanent it is, I have an answer for it, is very powerful. Now, what Echoing Truth does not work against, which is pretty relevant, is Chalice of the Void. If your opponent goes Chalice on 2, look at how many 2-drops we have. Almost every crucial spell in our deck is a 2-drop. So, the way you can't hit that with Echoing Truth, so that's why we have something like Shattering Spree. Shattering Spree is a replicate spell that destroys target artifact with replicate for red. So this is useful against Tron, it's useful against all sorts of artifact hate, whether it's Grafdigger's Cage, Relics of Progenitus, all that kind of stuff. But the main thing is Chalice of the Void. Even if they Chalice on 1, Chalice doesn't counter the replicated copies. So Shattering Spree is just kind of a house in those matchups. That's the way they want to disrupt you. Lightning Bolt, similarly. Lightning Bolt's for problem permanent creatures. So this is your Eidolons of the Great Revel, Aethersworn Canonist, Thalia, all that kind of stuff. Lightning Bolt's there to be like, yeah, I'm just going to kill that, and now I'm going to go off. It's not there for value creatures. You're not bringing it in against Bob decks because you want to kill Bob. No, that's not what it's there for. It's there to kill things that are going to disrupt your combo. Because the thing is, once you get those things out of the way, you just win the game. And the strength of playing a linear combo deck like Storm is that you're just faster than a lot of your opponents once you have your pieces together. Gigadrowse. Gigadrowse is a new addition I've had to the deck, and the main reason I'm playing Gigadrowse is actually because this is practice for GP Madrid, which is a Team Unified Modern event. So I'm going to be playing Storm at that event, and I usually run Blood Moon in this slot, actually, but my teammate, Nathaniel, is going to be running Affinity, and he wants Blood Moons in his sideboard. So instead, I'm going to be running Gigadrowse. Gigadrowse is for control matchups. It's another replicate spell like Shattering Spree, but it costs a blue, and it says tap targeting permanent. What this lets you do is when you're playing control, make them tap out. You wait, you sculpt your hand, you wait until either they put a clock on you and you have to go off, or you finally get all your pieces together, and you basically go Gigadrowse for 5. And they're like, what? And you're like, yeah, I'm going to make you tap out of everything right now on the end of your turn. And then I'm going to untap. And then I'm going to win the game. So that's the idea behind it. So far in testing, it can be a little bit clunky if you miss your land drops. But as long as you're making your land drops, Gigadrowse is very powerful against control matchups. Which, is really relevant with things like Jeskai running around. Or even sometimes other traditional control decks, blue, white, and the like. Finally, the last card is Dispel. And again, this is just a hedge for the counterspell matchups. So any blue decks that you think are going to interact with you on the stack. Anyways, this is Storm. I think it's a really, really powerful deck right now, and I think it's a great choice pretty much for any modern deck, because even if people are hating on it, it's still just pretty consistent. One of the most busted things to be doing in modern. It's just fast and powerful. Anyways, I'll see you guys in round 1 of this league. I'm pretty excited to play this deck on camera. So we'll catch you in a minute.